Fellow Hyrulean, AI optimization of your ad platforms, mostly talking about Google and Facebook, but as these videos continue, you might be seeing this on TikTok and Snapchat as well. This is one of the best ways to get an extra 10-15% out of your ad spend, because if you feed better data back to your ad platforms, they're going to have better data to work with, more complete data, and they're going to get better at finding your customer, which means find your customer cheaper. In this video series, you're going to see exactly how to set this up depending on your business model, whether you're in e-commerce, info marketing, running a call funnel, from one of the top experts on HYROS, Dan Ryder. He has an agency, Ryder Media, which absolutely crushes it. He was actually one of the first, actually I believe the first customer on HYROS, and he's an absolute master of optimizing these AIs based on the types of businesses, because he works on, well, multiple different businesses as an agency and has to do this for pretty much everyone. So that being said, if you want to actually work with Dan, link to his agency right below this video. This is everything you need to know about setting up AI optimization for your HYROS account depending on your business model. Just find the video in this series that has the title of your business. Watch this one first, and I'll leave you to it. Let's get into it.
And so real quick, just so you know who's talking to you, my name is Dan Ryder. I'm the owner and operator of Ryder Media. And Ryder Media is a certified agency partner with HYROS. I believe we were the first agency to form this partnership. We manage millions of dollars in ad spend per month. We work with clients who have information businesses, coaches, consultants, as well as e-commerce. And we've helped them over the last couple of years strategically scale and track the performance of their ad campaigns using HYROS. We've had a lot of success doing so. And so if that's something that you're interested in, if you want that done for you, you can reach out to us at rydermedia.com. Otherwise, we're going to go through some key concepts in this video to teach you how to take the data that you're collecting with HYROS and feed it back to the ad network so you can get the most out of your campaigns. So first, what we need to do is we need to talk about why this is important and what's changed in the advertising landscape so you understand the power that HYROS brings to your business. All right, so let's get into it. So when we talk about feeding AI, what we're really talking about is server-to-server tracking, right? And this has got other names. On Facebook, they call it using their conversion API. Google calls it offline conversions or offline events, or even importing conversions from clicks. It's got different names. But ultimately what it is, it's server-to-server tracking. And when we do this, we're actually cutting out a step in the process that we used to rely on a lot more, whether you know it or not. So let me just show you what this looks like so you could really get it, because this is really important. So in a normal situation, you'd have an ad, right? So pardon my messy drawing here. I'm going to walk you through it. So let's say you have a Facebook ad. Here's Facebook. Here's the Facebook ad. Tom's on Facebook. He sees the ad. He clicks on the ad. And when Tom clicks on the ad, he ends up on your website, on your e-com store, your funnel, whatever. And on that funnel, on that site, you've got a pixel, a Facebook pixel, right? And what happens? So we used to rely on pixels and tags to do a lot of the heavy lifting with conversion tracking. So what would normally happen is Tom gets on the site, the pixel creates a cookie, and it puts the cookie on this outer box here represents the person's browser, whether that's on their phone, on their computer, whatever. It puts a little cookie, and all a cookie is, it's a little snippet of information. It's like a profile on that user who just visited your site. And it's just collecting different points of data. And in this case, PV stands for page view, right? So it creates this little page view event immediately, and that gets sent back to Facebook. So right away, Facebook can start building a case for Tom and what Tom did when he clicked on your ad, right? And that's great. It's great as long as the cookie actually works, because let's move over to the right here, right? Now we've got a line here. Now sometimes this happens right away, or sometimes this happens days later. But let's say Tom decides to buy something, right? So now it's like days later, but when he gets to your page, that pixel is right away. It's gonna fire an event, and it's gonna look immediately. It's gonna look at the browser, whatever Tom is using to look at your site. The pixel is going to check for a cookie that it left a few days ago or at some point in the past. And it's going to check to see if it knows who it is, right? And if it does know who it is, when Tom buys, that information goes back to Facebook. And that's great. And then Facebook would see that Tom, bought something, and then that would show up as a pixel inside your ad account. And life was great when that actually worked, right? And so now we are in a place where pixel tracking, tag tracking based on browsers and things like that. They're just not as effective. So what you really need to do is you need to have your own way to collect this information. And that's exactly what we do with HYROS. So let's look at an example now. Let's take this illustration and let's show what happens with HYROS. Okay, so what's the difference between what we just looked at, which was pixel and tag-based tracking, right? Web-based tracking, and server tracking with HYROS, for example, right? So here's another rendition of this illustration here. And pardon my sloppiness again, but we've got an ad here, right? And a user clicks an ad. They make it to your site, which is represented by this little box inside the bigger box, which is the browser. And in this case, we're going to assume that our cookies are getting blocked. That's why I drew an X over it. So cookies are getting blocked. But here's the good news, okay? You've got HYROS now plugged into your funnel, into your e-commerce store. That's represented by this little circle with the H in it. And what happens now, instead of the information getting stored on a cookie and you relying on it being there when the person takes a higher value action like making a purchase, what's going to happen immediately, right? As soon as somebody visits your site, your funnel, is HYROS is going to start building a profile. And that's what this down arrow is here, right? This little server representation here. It's this little box with storage, right? It's like cloud storage. You're basically renting a server in a way, and HYROS is tracking Tom. Here's Tom. Here's like, imagine like a little baseball card with Tom, and all these little lines are just different points of data. Tom's device, Tom's email address, etc. All the different ways that HYROS is tracking on the back end. What ad Tom clicked, right? It knows what ad Tom clicked to get there in the first place, and it just stores it. It stores it in your HYROS account, right? And then if we move past this line here down the middle, and we go, let's say, 3 days later, 30 days later, 300 days later, it really doesn't matter. But at some point in the future, Tom comes back. And again, our cookie, I drew an X over that cookie because the cookie's not working in this case. We're just going to assume that the cookie's getting blocked, the cookie's been deleted, whatever the case may be. The pixel is not allowed to use data inside of a browser, right? But the good news is you've got HYROS. And so Tom comes back, he makes a purchase, and so the HYROS code on your store, your funnel, it's going to know that Tom made a purchase. It's going to send that data back to HYROS, and then HYROS is going to say, oh, this is Tom. This is Tom. We know Tom. Tom was here earlier, right? And so now HYROS has a perfect customer journey for Tom. What ads he clicked on, what emails he opened, everything that you plug HYROS into, you're tracking on your own server, which is HYROS, right? And that's what this whole bar represents, just visually here, is your HYROS server and your HYROS account. And the beauty of this is that now you can take that information and you can send it back to Facebook. Remember Facebook over here? And Facebook calls it the conversion API, which is simply just a channel to send information back to Facebook from your own server. That's all the conversion API is. So let's summarize what's really happening here. In the previous environment, you had your ads, you had people clicking on your ads, they'd make it to your site, and our web pixels would rely on information and cookies to pass data back to the ad networks, right? But now those cookies are getting blocked or deleted or what have you, and we have a break in that information. And when we have a break in that information, ad campaigns torpedo, right? The ad network is now blind to the conversion. It doesn't see who's buying, who's becoming a lead, like these important actions that they need to know to help you optimize your campaign further on their ad network and scale higher. That information is not there. So you need to give it to them some other way. And that's server to server tracking, and that's with HYROS, right? And so instead of relying on cookies, we have HYROS plugged into our funnels. HYROS is collecting all the data, the ad clicks, everything they do to interact with your business, including the ads. It's attributing it appropriately, and it's sending it back, in Facebook's case with the conversion API, in Google's case through an offline import. Whatever ad networks wants to call it, it doesn't matter. HYROS is sending it server to server. So that's what AI, feeding AI is. That's why it's important. It's necessary at this point to advertise at scale and to advertise efficiently and get the most out of your campaign. So that's it for this video. In the next couple of videos, we're going to go into deploying this, setting it up, and getting the most out of your campaigns.